Hello and welcome to Anderson Community Television. I'm Carol Donahue, your host today of At Your Service, and I'm so happy to be interviewing today Ben Meyer from Anderson Township Fire and Rescue. Welcome to the program, Ben.
Thank you, Carol.
And I understand today we're going to be talking about the child safety seats, and I believe you are the guru of that program.
Well, guru might be a strong word, but I have been in charge of the program since 2005. So.
Well, tell us a little bit about the program. When did it begin here in the township?
Well, I believe it began around 2000, 2001. Anderson Township Fire was one of the original fire departments that started doing car seats in the greater Cincinnati area. And we've been doing them pretty much as many as anybody else in the greater Cincinnati area, numbers-wise, ever since. I mean, we usually vary between 200 and 350 car seat inspections a year, which is quite a few. And yeah, we're open every day.
So let's kind of walk me through this. Say I'm at home, I'm a new mom, and I'm just not really secure that I've got this thing correctly. I believe there is a number that we would prefer that you call to set an appointment. Is that true?
That is true.
And what is that number again?
That number is area code 513-688-8093. Okay. That's the number to our Station 100 up on Broadwell Road.
Okay.
And the way it works, our program in Anderson, we have 66 firefighters roughly, but only about 7 of us are car seat techs. And we spread them out over each of the 3 unit days. So shift 1 has a couple, shift 2 has a couple, shift 3 has a couple, and we could be at any of our 4 different stations. So just showing up to one of the firehouses, somebody might be there and they might not be there. So it's always best to call and make an appointment. Plus, we do a lot of other things in the fire department besides just make 911 runs. We do hydrants and inspections and training. And to make sure that we're there, it's always best to call. But that number can be found on the website.
And we're going to have that on the screen posted. So someone makes an appointment and they come with their seat, of course, and with the baby, which would probably be more beneficial. And then you assist them in installing it correctly. And what is the most common mistake parents make and put that seat in?
Well, there's a number of different mistakes depending on the age of the child, but a lot of them, they just don't get it in tight enough, or they don't get it in at the right angle, or sometimes they're just not using the right seat for their child, because there's different seats to be had based on the age and size of your child.
So is it the age and the weight? It's not just the age, because you can have a preemie that might be 5 months old but be a lot smaller than maybe a...
That's correct. Yeah. The guidelines that pretty much all first-time parents or anytime parents should know is children under the age of 2 should be placed in a rear-facing car seat. That means they're facing backwards towards the back windshield as opposed to the front. And what that does is that really protects their cervical spine from a whiplash type injury, and that's really what we're concerned with the really young children. After 2 years old, they can be turned around into a forward facing car seat, at which point they should be in until they're 4 years old and at least 40 pounds. And a few years ago, Ohio passed a booster seat law that basically states that children should be in a booster seat until they're either 8 years old or 4'9". So basically 8, because that's a pretty big 8-year-old.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Right.
Oh my goodness. I know when our oldest son had his children, and I was so afraid when they were facing the other direction. Are they still breathing? Are they okay back there?
Right.
There's a little mirror, isn't there, that can be mounted?
You can buy those. I mean, we don't per se recommend that you have to go out and buy aftermarket products. Generally, what your car seat comes with is what you need, but I do see a lot of parents using the mirrors.
Well, I know when you go like to Target or wherever you go to buy these, is it worth going the extra to get the Cadillac version, or are they basically the same?
Well, they all have to pass the same crash test. I mean, so they put every new car seat that goes on the market in a crash test, and they have to pass it. So the $60 one versus the $360 one have to meet the same test. Now, you can look at a lot of seats and tell which ones are more plush or easier to use. And what a lot of the more expensive ones do is they give you a wider range of weights and lengths that you can use it for. For example, a cheaper seat might only go up to 40 pounds. But what if your 3-year-old weighs 52 pounds? Then you have to buy another seat for that last year. Whereas a lot of the more expensive seats will have a wider range. They'll go up to 65 pounds. And some of them you can actually, after your child turns 4 and weighs over 40 pounds, you can take the straps out and things and use it as a booster seat. Or you can just buy a booster. And some of them can go rear facing and forward facing. It's just the money that you spend. I wouldn't say everybody needs to go out and buy the Cadillac version. Just buy what you like, and know that if it's installed right and you use it properly, it'll keep your child safe.
I know they're basically made out of plastic.
That's correct.
So, plastic is strong, but it doesn't last forever. Say if you have a car seat that is about 9 years old, do you inspect those and say, yeah, this is still good for another few years, or do you advise people, no, if they're that old, get another one?
Well, just about all car seats made, I mean, at 9 years, they should definitely get another one. Most of them have a lifespan of 7 years, and a lot of people don't know this, but if you look on the bottom of the car seat, a lot of times molded into the plastic, it'll say do not use after December 2016 or something like that. Or sometimes it's on the labels, but they do have an expiration date. And I do get asked that quite frequently, like, how does a car seat expire? The manufacturer says it does, and everything that we do in our program and everybody Greater Cincinnati wide that performs car seat inspections, we go off the manufacturer's recommendations.
Gosh, I remember in my day, you would have these little car seats with a little steering wheel and little horn.
Right.
And the kids could climb out of it, and they'd be climbing all over the car. Well, I think this program must have saved a lot of injuries and a lot of lives.
That's the thing. As a firefighter paramedic, the last thing, I can tell you across the board, every guy that works in this industry, the last thing, and ladies, I'm sorry, that we want to pull up on is an injured child, especially if it's a easily preventable injury. I mean, if there's a child not in a car seat, just sitting in the back seat, and they get ejected out of a car in a crash, that can completely have been eliminated by spending a little bit of money and giving us a call and having us install your car seat and teach you how to use it. Your child would be fine. A personal story. I have 2 children, and when my son was a first grader and my daughter was 18 months old, we were T-boned in a wreck by a full-size truck going downhill at about 30 miles an hour. Both my kids were in car seats. My son was on booster seat, but my 18-month-old, I mean, it was to the point where it bent the frame of a 3/4-ton pickup truck.
Wow.
It was a serious wreck.
Yes.
She walked away from it unscratched. And they work. It's not like a suit of armor where if you have a child in a car seat, they're not going to get hurt. It can still happen. It still does happen. But that's the single most important thing you can do to keep your kids safe. And as a parent myself, I consider that my primary responsibility.
I think it would be so tempting, say if you're taking a trip and you've been in that car for 10 hours or whatever, and the baby is crying, it's so hard not to pick the baby up to soothe it, or if you're nursing, to take the baby out and nurse the baby. So I guess you just have to weigh the...
I guess that's why they make rest stops.
Exactly. That's what they're for. Well, can you... I see you brought 3 of them with you today.
Yeah, I brought a couple. There's another type I couldn't get my hands on. Like I said, I haven't had a very small child in a long time. Mine are 13 and 9 by now. But there's pretty much 3 different types of car seats. You have your infant carriers, which are all rear facing, and you've probably seen them. They have like a little handle, and you can carry the baby around, and there's usually a base that it'll click into in your car. I don't have that right now. Then there's what we call a convertible seat. This is an example of a convertible seat. What I mean by convertible is it can either be placed in the car rear facing, or that would be its rear facing position.
Okay.
Or we can turn it around when the child's older and place it in a forward facing position.
I see.
So you can get more usage out of these. And a lot of times, if you had like an infant carrier that only had like a 22-pound rating, these will have a higher rating rear facing than an infant carrier would. And this would be an example of a booster seat. Booster seats are simple. If you notice, there's really no straps in them.
Oh,
They
that's
just
right.
sit in the seat, and you use the seat belt as your car with your car, that just
The
like you would
restraint,
us.
yeah.
But the thing is, there's different slots where the shoulder strap would cross the child's shoulders, because you don't want it too steep and you don't want it too flat. And what it does is it brings the belt across the child's pelvic bones as opposed to across their abdomen, because in a serious crash scenario, what we found a lot of times is even when a child is using a seatbelt, the seatbelt's really for an adult, and they can actually have internal injuries
from
to
that
their
belt.
liver and spleen
Oh.
and kidneys and stuff from the belt. And what a booster seat's primary function does is it puts the belt across their pelvis.
I see.
And you got that structure with the bone, and it's a much safer thing. The other one I'm going to just point at, we take children to the hospital all the time in ambulances, and ambulances are moving vehicles too. This is a car seat that we strap to our ambulance cot. All 4 ambulances here in Anderson Township have those, so we can safely transport your child to the hospital.
Wow, that's pretty great.
It's a little bit more
Yeah.
involved, but
Well, let's just go back briefly for a moment to the class that you offer. About how long does that take? Is it a half-hour class or?
well, what we do is we perform inspections and installations. Our job is to educate. So if, say, a first-time parents make an appointment, come in, what we usually recommend is that they allot themselves about 30 minutes and bring all the materials that their car seat came with, manuals and paperwork, and also the manuals to their car. And sometimes they'll have 2 cars. Mom has a car, dad has a car.
You're right.
They'll bring them both. That's fine. We tell them to allot about 30 minutes. And we also tell them to take it out of the box if you can and try to install it yourself. The whole thing that we want to do is educate you. So when you walk out of that fire department, you're going to know how to install this car seat. If I took it out, set it on the ground, and walked away, you could get it back in. You could, because we teach you to do that. Because even though we'll gladly just put it in for you, say you have to take it out for some, you can't just be making an appointment every time. I mean, you could, but it would be pretty inconvenient. And it's something a parent should know. Say grandma decides to drive, but she doesn't have a car seat, and you do, and do you want to make an appointment at the spur of the moment, or if you know how to do it, you can just do it. It's not that hard to do, but we will. It's all. There's no general rules of thumb. I mean, there's some rules of thumb, but every car seat and every car are different. People always ask me, what should I buy? What's the best car seat? The one that fits your child and your car the best. I've had some seats that just won't go in certain cars properly.
Really?
Really. They're just hard to do. And some that'll go in any car. But what we'll do is we'll teach you how to do it.
Do you recommend doing that before the baby's born so that when you go to the
Absolutely.
hospital to pick the baby up?
Usually, I don't know if they still do it, but at hospitals they'll make parents watch a video before they leave
Release
about
them.
car seats. And they will actually walk down, when they walk you out, usually mom in a wheelchair holding the baby, to the car, have somebody pull the car up so they can make sure that A, you have a car seat, and B, that it's installed correctly. So we have a lot of people that come that last month.
Now, when you're taking the baby on a trip on an airplane, take the car seat with you?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's different rules for airline travel, but if you have an infant carrier, you can easily strap that in to an airplane seat. But I don't think airplane seats need all this. Like, you wouldn't need a booster seat so much on an airplane. So there's difference. The airlines will all have that information on their websites because they all recommend different things, because every plane has somewhat different seats.
How about car rentals? Do some of them have seats to use?
I don't think so. I don't think they
That
do.
would be
They would. I mean,
something.
they rent your car, but if you have a kid, I guess it's you have to
Your
provide your own
responsibility.
seat.
Yeah.
Right.
So what is the most important thing you think? Is it getting the seat that fits the child in the car? That's the most important thing.
Correct.
And then the installation of that's done correctly.
Right.
And I think the trickiest thing is that seatbelt, so it's in the right position.
Yeah. There's some things that we always teach people on how to look at it and see if it works right and fits right. But the thing is, just because the car seat is installed perfectly, if you're not using it perfectly, that's just as important. For example, I can have that seat installed in the car and it won't move an inch and everything's perfect, but if the parents just click the straps together and they're so loose that you can just pull the child right out of the straps without cinching them down, or if they're crossing the shoulders at the wrong angle, and there's a number of different things. So I mean, you have to use the seat properly as well as have it installed properly, and we teach you about both of those things.
So does the industry you have to keep up on that every couple of years? They come out with something new. What is the newest thing since you've been involved?
Well, I mean, they're all basically the same basic concepts, but since I was involved, over the last 10 years, the capacities have gotten a whole lot wider. I remember I mean, both my children are big, and when my son, who's real big, was a baby, they didn't have any seats that had over a 40, I mean, there's like 2 on the market that had over a 40-pound limit. And
Really?
now there's 20 on the market that do. I guess they listened to the consumer and heard them saying that, yeah, kids are bigger now. You need to make higher capacity seats.
They look a lot more comfortable than they used to look, too.
Yeah,
So that's a good thing.
And these ain't even the latest and the greatest. These are just a couple. But, yeah.
Is there a website if somebody wants some information?
There's a few. One that, before we get into that, I'll touch on a little about the education that we have to have, because
Okay.
it kind of wraps it together. To be a car seat technician, it's a 4-day class. It's a 30-hour class that is taught by Cincinnati Children's Hospital, their Trauma Services Division. They do all the education and continuing education for technicians in the greater Cincinnati area. And after you are a technician, every 2 years you have to go to an 8-hour, it's basically 8 hours, a refresher class, which is continuing education. It tells you about all the newer seats on the market, newer technologies, newer rules, maybe new laws. We just have to keep up on that. You can't just learn how to put in car seats and that's all you need to know forever. It's every 2 years we have to be re-educated. But safekids.org is the sanctioning body who holds our certifications. There's a lot of good information on safekids.org. You can also find it on any of the manufacturers of the car seats, Graco, Britax, Evenflow. They all have lots of good information. If you ever lose your owner's manual, they have owner's manuals you can download. You can actually register your car seat on their websites as well. And that is important, because if it ever gets recalled for any reason, it's important that it's registered, because that way they'll contact you and let you know. But the National Highway Traffic Safety, NHSTA, I can't remember if that's .org or .gov, but they have a lot of good information on their websites as well.
Wow. So, I mean, we're fortunate to have people like yourselves who are so well versed on this that keep our kids safe.
Well, it's kind of a passion of mine. There's, I guess, some firefighters who specialize in certain things and are more interested in certain things, and this was always something that, I thought was important, and it is important, because looking back over the 9 or 10 years I've been doing this, the amount of things I've taught people just on this is just huge.
I would imagine.
I've seen people come in with car seats that were installed with ratchet straps that they bought from Home Depot because they didn't know any better. And then I think back and, if I could have prevented one injury, or anybody on our department through the education process could have prevented an injury, it's all worth it.
It truly is. And these classes are free, correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're classes, so to speak. They're more inspections, and we just call it a car seat inspection.
Inspection,
So,
right.
because what we we'd like to do is if you made an attempt to do it, we'll tell you what you did right, tell you what you did wrong, and fix if there's any issues that we could fix, and show you how to do it, teach you how to do it right every time. So we do them 365 days a year from 9 to 6, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I can't say we do them at this specific station, but you just call that number, 688-8093, the day you want to get it done.
Okay.
So we don't like to make appointments like 3 or 4 days in advance because, for example, if somebody called and I made an appointment 3 days in advance and told you, okay, we'll be doing it at Station 6, and then I got moved to a different station, it makes it confusing.
If an emergency came
right.
up. Yeah.
That is one of the things that we ask the public to keep in mind and be patient about. Every one of our firehouses, when we do car seats, is a working firehouse. So if you have an appointment, even if you talk to me a half hour earlier, that doesn't mean that 10 seconds from now the tones might go off and I might have to jump on the truck and leave. So if you ever have an appointment and get to one of our firehouses and there's nobody there, that's probably what happened, and that's pretty much out of our control.
I think most people would understand the importance of getting there in a timely manner. And again, don't feel embarrassed if you're not sure the next time, because I'm sure they'd be glad to go over it again with you and check it again.
Exactly. I mean, like I said, we do them, 9 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's pretty accommodating. We prefer that you do call, like I said, as opposed to just show up. But even if you do show up, we'll still get you taken care of.
Well, aren't we lucky here in Anderson? We have, and I asked you before we started the cameras, that we have firefighters and paramedics.
That's correct.
So we have a very educated, dedicated force.
We try to be.
Well, thank you so very much for taking time. Would you like to leave us with an additional message? I think you pretty much covered it.
Well,
But we thank you for coming today, and we thank you for watching. And before I closed, I just wanted to send our condolences to the family of firefighter and paramedic and nurse Kevin Ollier. So our condolences to that family. He passed away recently. Thank you all for watching. Keep safe, and I'll see you next time.